Welcome back to What It's Really Like to Be an Entrepreneur. I'm Vincent Lanci, speaker and author of the book Left for Dead, A Story of Redemption. Want to know what it's really like to be an entrepreneur? Well, you came to the right place. Whether you're already an entrepreneur or looking to start your journey tomorrow, or maybe just someone who needs a little extra motivation to get through the day, this is the perfect podcast for you. This is the place where you will learn exactly what it's like in the world of entrepreneurship and hear authentic stories of entrepreneurs grinding on each episode. My goal for this podcast is to help you realize that giving up is never an option. If you missed the last episode, be sure to download it after you tune in today. Before I introduce my guest, I'll share another entrepreneurial story to inspire you all. I'll now introduce the story of David Danishkar, and here's a few highlights I jotted down. I actually enjoyed this story a lot because it came from someone following his passion, in this case was poker, which led him to becoming an entrepreneur with his own company. For you non-poker watchers, poker players, David is a guy who won the World Series of Poker in 2008. By only 26 years old, he was already a multi-millionaire. In 2011, he became the co-founder of Bloom Nation, which is a marketplace that allows florists to actually sell flowers direct to customers. Company didn't even seek outside investment, they just saw poker games. I thought this was pretty cool because as David and two other co-founders traveled to LA to compete in this 2-day poker tournament in Los Angeles to win 30 grand, they grinded. This was exactly the amount they needed for seed funding. After the tournament concluded, David actually won. They celebrated for a fantastic dinner, and they immediately put that money towards a development check for the first version of Bloom Nation. Hey, Matt, what'd you like best about that story?
I think what stood out the most was I'm a real numbers guy, and like when things align. So the fact that the amount of money that they won was exactly what they needed.
Yeah,
that probably hit the most.
Absolutely. Everybody, that voice you just heard is the sound of today's guest. My guest on the show today is another friend I met through networking. As usual, listeners pick up on this. Networking is powerful, and you'll grow whatever business you have. I'm truly enjoying this network of people, of entrepreneurs, because we all have great stories to share, and you listeners can learn a lot. From photos to movies, this guy has grinded to start doing it all because that's what he's passionate about. I'd like to now introduce Matt McNair. Matt, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me, boss. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, please preview your story a bit, and then we'll touch on what you're working on today before we hop into the big five.
My story is I love basketball. So I used to train basketball probably about like 6 years ago. I used to be train basketball. I used to be a basketball coach. And then I moved to Kentucky to coach basketball. So I was coaching at a Division II school up there. And didn't really know anybody up there. So outside of basketball, I had to kind of find something to kind of take up my time and, so I could be productive and insane. So I saw something on Instagram, and it was a really dope video. And I was like, yo, I want to be able to recreate that if I ever wanted to. And so I just went out on a whim, and I bought a really expensive camera, and I just started working it from there. And then long story short, the basketball coach had ended up quitting, and a lot of stuff ended up going sideways or whatever. And then so I ended up leaving early from Kentucky and moved back to Orlando. And then from there, I opened up an escape room. I don't know if you ever been to one or heard.
No, I've heard of them. I haven't been though. I want
to. You got to go to one. They're fun. So I ended up opening an escape room. And unfortunately, it was only open for a year. And once that closed, I focused more on videography, and that's kind of where I'm at today.
Awesome, man. I'm excited for everybody to learn exactly about your journey and get inspired by that. So Matt, what I do is I do the big five on each episode. I ask each guest the same 5 questions to help you, the listeners, all learn what it's really like to be an entrepreneur. You ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Great. When did you first realize that you weren't happy with what you're doing? Maybe you just touched on it with closing the last company. Maybe you had it a while. But when did you realize you wanted to be an entrepreneur? When would you realize this is what I want to do?
I realized it when I was in Kentucky coaching. It was kind of a grind that I wasn't sure if I was ready for. Where it's just like, yeah, you have to be here at this time. You got to do this. You got to do that. And then, but more importantly, I wasn't enjoying it for some reason the way that I thought I was probably going to enjoy it. And then naturally things just started to unravel by itself. So I didn't even have to I kind of got forced out of the situation, which was a blessing. So, which put me to, like I said, opening the escape room. And And kind of when I opened the escape room, kind of the same thing happened then. So it was a lot of, grind. We had to create our games, get the place, just all of that. It was me and three other individuals, and that was tough. And in the beginning, it was fun. I'm not gonna lie, just creating the games, the story, the just everything. It was fun in the beginning. And then when things kind of started to settle in, we opened up, and it was like, all right, so we're here now. So now it's like, okay, so how do we get more people in the door? How do we actually make money? How do we, just all these things start coming up that we thought about before and kind of planned, but it's, everybody got, how they say everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. So I
Yeah, that's right.
got punched in the mouth pretty hard. So it all just came kind of crashing down in a sense. I was there every day, started out 7 days a week, because we kind of didn't have the funds for employees. So I was me and another my other partner was
I
there
know the feeling. I know the feeling.
and that itself was not fun. So it went from kind of being able to be creative and all this stuff in the beginning to then kind of just being at a standstill, and just kind of came down to like marketing and how we're going to do this. And it became really stressful. So, and that was the start of my entrepreneur, like
Yeah, yeah.
like road, but which I'm still not out of it. It's just it turned, my mindset and like where I'm going kind of turned. So you can be an entrepreneur. It's just there's different. You can choose what you want to do. So just like a job, like I
Yeah.
can choose to work here or I can choose to work there. I may like one over the other, regardless. You may be an entrepreneur, and everybody has multiple things that they're thinking of or maybe want to do or come out with, and you just might choose wrong. So
Yeah.
that one was just tough. And once again, the way it unfolded kind of played out in my favor, and we were able to actually sell it. And so
There you
some
go.
individuals, yeah, some individuals who actually opened the first escape room in Orlando came and played our game. They loved it, and they bought both of our games for a pretty good amount of money. And they reopened the games in Orlando in their location and all over the country at their locations. So it ended up being a blessing. I get to still play the game. If I wanted to, I can send people to go play the game. But like, yeah, I created that. So it still ended up being a blessing, but I had to. That was when I realized like I had to come out of there. When it wasn't working. You kind of get these things, and you kind of know,
Yeah.
deep down, that something's not right. And the hardest thing is to actually pull yourself out of it. But fortunately for me, and I'm just kind of like figuring this out now, that it was just a blessing that both situations, whether it was me coaching or me being at the escape room, I was kind of moved out and didn't have to sit down and make a straightforward decision like, all right, I'm exiting out of this. I kind of, life kind of just eased me out of it, and that's very
Yeah.
fortunate.
I mean, I'm sure you had a lot of learning experiences from that. The most important thing, you took that and now you're on your way doing great with this one. We might have to link up sometime out in Orlando. It's just a short drive. Do one of those game rooms for sure.
Yeah, 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 for sure.
Uh,
I'll show you the
what,
ropes.
what would you say one or two of the most difficult parts of being an entrepreneur now are?
Um, I think we're seeing a flood of entrepreneurs, because I just think like really well-known people are just talking about it so much, and I honestly feel like they're kind of like forcing it on society. But even more than that, I feel like people are kind of, we're getting all these entrepreneurs because they're working a job that they hate, and haven't found their purpose, which is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
So like whether you're an entrepreneur or not, most people they're just doing something that they don't want to do. So they feel like, okay, I can be an entrepreneur and I can go kind of do what I want to do. So that's it work. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But I think honestly that if you were working a job for somebody that you love doing, I don't think that they would be even thinking about being an entrepreneur, because they would be happy in their purpose and happy with what they were doing to begin with.
Absolutely. Well
And
said.
when they get into it, it's like you start to realize like it's not a fair game to me. Everybody has their opinions, but kind of like being an entrepreneur is just it's hard, because simple math tells you like, okay, like if this product is the best, it should make the most money, or
Right.
it should succeed over the other ones, which is not the case. What I'm saying? Whether you come out with a product or a service or whatever it may be, there's so much that goes into it. Whether the people, marketing is huge. It's just like, it doesn't matter sometimes how good your product is. It's like you have to be able to get it out. You have to have people to back it. It's just so many things go into what you're doing as an entrepreneur that it's not a fair game. So when people get into it and they realize that, they're kind of like, bro, what the heck? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like I had all these other things, or I had all these other products, or I tried all these other things. Mine is the best. Like, hello, do y'all see me? Like, it doesn't work out that way for them. So like that's a tough one in being an entrepreneur. And then I have one more. My second one is, it's kind of like the importance of taking care of yourself in totality when you're an entrepreneur. You can't focus in on one thing at all times. There's so much that makes the individual from top to bottom. So, just focusing on your business is not going to get it done as an entrepreneur. Having friendships, relationships, whether it's girlfriend, boyfriend, or just like I said, friendships, or religion, or just there's just so much that makes the entire person, that if you just focus on one, you're not. It's tough, because you go from being like a piece of the car to the whole car. You know what I'm saying? Like, so if I'm working for somebody or whatever, and I may be whatever, some random part in the car, right? And then, but all the other parts, people that I work with or whatever, like it can still go. Yeah, it may jitter down the street or whatever or something because of me, but it's still gonna move. And once you're an entrepreneur and you are the car, if you're not taking care of all those things, it's tough, because it's you now, and that's probably the biggest one to me. It's, if you're not right and totally, like, it really takes a hit on what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I really like how you put that. In an earlier episode, someone brought up how you wear all the hats. You're wearing the marketing hat, the finance hat, the advertising hat, the editing hat, like we spoke about before the episode. All the hats just for this podcast, not even my whole brand. We have the editing, the filming, the drawing, the templates, the social media, all these things.
I was gonna say, like, just health too, like, and
yeah.
I've been getting like really big on just like working out, and like just, I feel like working out just it takes care of like so many things that people just tend to look over, not just appearance wise, but just like so many other things. So like that was just another thing to add on, like just like health, and just that's huge.
You got to be mindful of your health, and I've read a lot about how going to the gym is better for your mental health, almost with the science, than just your physical health. You got to have those mental health breaks, and when you're on your own schedule, you punch it in. I'm usually doing my weights between early 2 to 3 a.m. and then I'll go back in the afternoon and do my cardio, because I need that break. I need to get my mind right, because I know how much more work I have to do. And if I don't take, you don't want to take the breaks, but you got to take them sometimes, and you come back refreshed.
You have to. You got to.
You have to, man. Let's see. I'm curious to see if this is something different than we spoke about already. But what is one of your greatest failures, and what did it teach you?
It's surprisingly not different, and and that was like a tough one, because I tend not to try to like look at failures as a failure. So it's a kind of like like weird question, but the escape room would have to be somewhat of my biggest failure. But and I hear it all the time, and it's true. So whatever is like, your biggest failure is usually your biggest blessing, and that's just the truth. Because with the escape room and everything that I was able to learn from it, the experiences that I went through, it was one of the darkest and one of the most like lowest times. And like I said in the beginning, it was one of the highest times. So that roller coaster itself it's ridiculous. But towards the end, it was the worst. It was the worst times, like really dark. And once I was out of it, it led me to do what I was supposed to be doing. You know what I'm saying? So if I never got out of it, and it never quote unquote failed, I would have never been able to reach my purpose now. So it's like,
and been unhappy too. You would have been. It's the worst of both worlds. I mean, I look at everything as a lesson learned too, because you got to try to do it. If you don't try, you'll beat yourself up forever, and it's not worth that.
But once you fail, it's all you're doing is getting closer to what's for you. It's kind of like a checklist. You're checking off. Okay, that wasn't it. That wasn't for me. So like, now I'm just getting close to what's for me.
I like how you put that again, man. Great stuff today.
It's like, why, you ask yourself, like, why did you win? Like, say if I was successful, and we could look at all the reasons why I was successful, but you're always competing against somebody else. Entrepreneurship is like a big competition. So just because you won doesn't mean that you don't have things to work on. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
If I'm running the race and I take off and I'm going good, whatever, and I win the race. Now, why did I win the race? You know, you have like a win factor, or what lane you were in, or did the person that was favored to win not take off or slip, or take off not as fast as they were supposed to, or like there's other factors other than yourself. So just because you won or succeeded, you can learn a lot from failure. So you can learn things from failure that you can't learn from when you succeed. So it's, you know, it's honestly, failure is an awesome thing, quote unquote failure, because I just don't like, you know, I don't like the word failure, but because
That's the answer most entrepreneurs give, and it's the right answer, because entrepreneurship is so hard to perfect. 10, 15, 20 years, whatever, to even master some parts of it. You're not going to win it all. You can't possibly do everything right. It's just not possible. So I stopped beating myself up after a while, because not to be a perfectionist, or you just want to do things well. And when the outcome isn't as expected, you just build on it and you get even stronger for the next one. For sure, for sure.
Right.
If you could choose to have any conversation and learn from any entrepreneur throughout history, we're talking dead or alive, who are we picking? What are we talking about?
That's tough. Like I would probably choose Gary Vee, just because of how rational he is and just how much sense he makes. But even then, like I'm not gonna choose him. I'm not gonna choose that. There's two guys that I just have to like. There's a guy named David Meltzer, and he's like really rational too, and like you know, some people talk, it just makes so much sense and you can relate. So a lot of time it's who you can relate to the most. But even after all that, I probably would choose Andy Frisella, and that's when I got like really big on fitness and you know, getting my body back in shape and stuff. Like he has this thing called 75 hard. It's like a challenge, and you have to do 5 things consecutively for 75 days. And I did the challenge, and it just like made wonders in my life, and just like it was just awesome change. And he owns First Form, the protein powder,
Yeah.
things like that. Yeah, so he's the owner of that, and like he has like the #1 podcast for like whatever, like business podcast, I guess. And you know, he doesn't have any commercials on it, and he takes pride in that, like, because he doesn't do it for the money or anything like that. He's a tough nose. He's really like in your face, and like, so when I was down, like I needed that the most. So he would be the person that I would definitely want to meet and talk to.
I actually had on an earlier episode a friend of mine, Courtney. She runs her own business through First Form. That's what she does. You know, 100,000 followers, the whole nine, grinding. I thought it was a great episode, because to show people how to leverage their business with social media, being an entrepreneur or on your own. So it's funny you say that. Yeah, she's killing it.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Where do you see yourself in these entrepreneurial endeavors in 1 year and 5 years? Let's look a little into the future. We'll start with 1 year. 1 year from today, what are we seeing from you?
1 year, I want to have everything set up the right way. The foundation set, bricks set where they need to be. That's 1 year from now. Because it's one thing to have talent, but if you don't like utilize it in the ways that it needs to be utilized, it kind of goes to waste. So
it's a great way. Let's talk about a little bit where we're at right now too. Give our listeners some depth.
So like right now it's kind of, you know, it's like raw. It's really like, okay, so my talent's there. People reach out to me to do things. You know, I do it. I do a good job. Kind of that's it. You know, like, but when you start really understanding the ones that are really successful, they just have a certain formula. There's just certain ways to go about it to when you get to a certain level of expertise. You know, if you want to be a Robert De Niro or like some big, like there are ways that they go about, you know, some of them, everybody may be different, but there's usually a certain kind of outline in things, in a professionalism and just a way that they go about certain things to how they were able to get to the place that they're at. So me saying that, it's like, okay, it's like I can be good, but I don't have certain things like, okay, like, no, like let's go back. Like, let's make sure everything is lined up. Everything is set in a way where when you like, and then you're going to ask me where I see myself 5 years from now. Once the bricks are laid, once the foundation is made, you know, 5 years from now, I'm not searching for that perfect client. That perfect client is coming straight to me. And that's where I see myself 5 years now. So right now, I want to set everything up to where it can just streamline and everything can be set up in a way where 5 years from now, or even less than that, really, honestly, where things are just flowing and it becomes not, you put all the work on the front end, and then you can kind of not relax, but that work kind of doesn't have to be done anymore because you did it right. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You won't have to go back and fix things.
Do it right the first time. I'm a big believer in that. What would you say you specialize in right now? What are your specializations for all our listeners listening in?
Right now, I've been focusing on weddings. That's kind of my thing right now. I'm really focusing in on perfecting and shooting weddings. So yeah, I love sports. So sports isn't going anywhere. Basketball for me is huge. So I wanna be able to shoot in the NBA. So those are my two things right now: shooting in the NBA and my focus on weddings.
Right there in Orlando, the Magic are right there. Well, thanks so much, Matt. I know our listeners are going to see all the value in you coming up on this episode today. I personally enjoyed how you found the light at the end of the tunnel with your stories. A lot of those things would have put people down. I think it's important for people to realize that if today is really bad, it just means tomorrow is going to be brighter. And then you saw that in both situations. So I appreciate you sharing all that for our listeners. But it's time for the last word. Is there something you want to share with everybody listening in that we didn't touch on today?
I think it's important to talk to people who are in the same boat as you or working on the same things as you. I know a lot of people shy away because, like I said earlier, it's a competition. But a lot of people are going through the same struggles as you, and you guys can help each other. And I believe conversation is just when you meet somebody and you can have a conversation and you start to give advice to that person that's going through the same things as you. You start to give advice to them that you can't give to yourself, because whether it be a block of insecurities, a lack of confidence, or whatever, because you're not speaking on your behalf anymore. So when you start to talk, you're like in your head, you're like, oh shoot, like I need to be taking I wouldn't even have thought like that had I not been given advice to someone else who was going through the same things as me. So like I think that's huge. And I guess my last one would be is like if you're in this, like if your best isn't good enough, entrepreneurship isn't for you. Because I just feel like if you can go out there and give your best, and somebody's always going to be better than you, right? Like that's just the thing. Somebody's always going to be better than you. Like I worked hard at basketball, played as hard as I could or whatever, but there was always people better than me. Could I have worked harder? Yeah, probably. But yeah, even if I worked harder, I wouldn't have been LeBron James. You know what I'm saying? Like, so regardless of the fact is like everybody has their potential and everybody has their levels that they can reach. And the thing is, you need to find your purpose, find what you're good at, and maximize it. And then you have to be okay with the levels that you reach at, because at the end of the day, it's what you do best. And now you're doing the best that you can do. And if you're looking at somebody else and like, they're still better than me, you're going to just kill yourself forever. So if your best isn't good enough, you can forget it.
That's right. And you can't compare yourself to anybody. Everybody's on different chapters. Everybody has different circumstances. Everybody came from something different. Just focus on yourself. And I've learned, you can't be great at everything, like you're saying. So when the funding is there and all that, people that can help me with some things I'm not good at. But right now, like you said, entrepreneurship, you're always striving for the best. You mind sharing your social media, website, ways for our listeners to request your services or follow your endeavors?
Yeah, so on Instagram I'm at raw_photography, and I'm an Instagrammer. So if you want to reach me, you can DM me, give me a follow. I just started my other one. It's MCN Films, at MCN Films, on Instagram also. That's where most of my wedding stuff will be, as it picks up.
Great, everybody. Be sure to give those a follow. And remember to follow the show on Instagram and Facebook at Your Favorite Morning Podcast, and on Twitter at PodcastsByLanci. Of course, my handles are at Vincent A. Lanci on all social media and YouTube, and my website is vincentalanci.com. Be sure to check out my book, Left for Dead, A Story of Redemption, on Amazon now, but DM me or email me. I want to hear what you think. If you enjoyed today's episode, please continue listening and rate what it's really like to be an entrepreneur 5 stars. I work very hard to find value delivering stories for you on each episode. As always, I will end the show with a quote that inspired me, and know it will for you too. This one is from Richard Reed, co-founder of Innocent Drinks. He says, "Be nicer to your customers than your competitors." Thanks for listening, and I'll see you all in the next episode of What It's Really Like to Be an Entrepreneur.